So you'll determine what can happen, just working with the most likely, and you'll determine how you can respond, what communication channels, who's going to be your media spokesperson, how quickly do you need to respond. So it's important to develop policies to support those top-level decisions before a crisis. Looking at an example, as we're risk mapping, doggy-doo play area for your pets, the electricity goes out. In Twin Falls, with our wind, that's not unlikely. First thing that would be done is to evacuate the building. Next, you're going to determine the cause. Is it internally preventable, or was it something that is beyond the scope of management and employees? Maybe it's beyond the scope. Maybe there was a car accident and it took out a transformer. Maybe it's something wind related. Maybe we're having a storm. So you'd contact city services as needed. And then in order to build goodwill for your customers, you'd give each one a free pass for their next visit, apologizing, of course, for the inconvenience that they're suffering. Now let's say it's something that is internally preventable. Maybe a helpful employee had the bright idea to adjust how equipment was plugged in. They're so very proud, and right up till the lights go out. Well, once you get everyone out of the building and you've instructed them that you're going to verify what's going on, hang on just a second. You've determined that everyone else's lights are still on. Okay, so you're going to take a flashlight, you're going to go back in, you're going to adjust the plugged in items. Lights come back on, everything's wonderful, bring everyone back in. You'd still give them a free pass for their next visit because they were still inconvenienced. And then as you're working through the risk mapping, you determine what policies need to be put into place. How are you going to evacuate the building? Is every employee trained in how to evacuate a building? I would encourage it because there's a strong likelihood you'll need to evacuate at some point. And then how can you mitigate the risk that you've brought to light? In this case, you're going to write a policy that addresses who can touch the equipment that's plugged in. So the issue, even though it hasn't happened, you're going to assume that it could. Someone adjusted how equipment was plugged in. So to prevent this from happening, you're going to set up your policy that only trained management level employees may adjust how equipment is plugged into electrical outlets. It's one sentence, very clear, very straightforward, and the likelihood that this scenario will happen is now pretty much zero because employees know up front that they're not expected, encouraged, or welcome to adjust equipment. Your assignment is to create a simple risk map. I strongly encourage you not to choose something very complicated for this exercise. Your map can get very detailed very quickly. And then you'll write a policy to address the issue that you've raised. And I'm just looking for a sentence or two, not a book. The reason I encourage you to create a very simple risk map is because even with this risk map, it could be made a lot more detailed. What if someone gets hurt? How do we address that? What's the level of someone getting hurt? What happens to the dogs? What happens to the people? Where does management go? Where does staff go? What is expected as far as contacting city services? Who contacts city services? Who's in charge of issuing free passes? It could go on and get more and more detailed. That's not what I need you to address. I simply need what's a very common thing that could happen within your business. Is it something that could be prevented? Yes or no? Assuming yes, what could you do to prevent it? And then write a policy that helps you prevent it. Or maybe it's something you can't completely prevent. Maybe you have a daycare center and you're going to have children scrape their knees. So you can't prevent it, but what you can do is have a policy that all daycare employees are first aid certified and that there are multiple first aid kits on the premises and that employees know where to find those kits and how to use them. This is the last. I look forward to seeing what you come up with for your risk maps and to see how you address those issues.